How's it going, guys? This is Al. It is week 3, and we're going to go over your questions. I'm going to give you my answers to help you build your lineups on DraftKings for NFL week 3. We do this every single week, every single Friday. I take an hour and go over with my Twitch subs, and we just chat back and forth. Y'all shoot questions at me, 2v2s, 1v1s, strategy questions, players that you think might be viable for your cash games or tournaments this weekend. And I'll take a look at it on DraftKings, and we'll go over it for the entirety of this hour. If you're watching this on YouTube and you like the content and you want to help support the channel, please give this video a like, smash that subscribe button, and please ring that notifications bell. It means a lot to me. It helps me grow the channel, and that's something that I've been trying to do all along. So thank you guys very much as we approach 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. So let's get to the questions. We'll bring in the chat. It says, have Kamara and McCaffrey in PPR? I don't know if you can this week. Unless you go massive value at wide receiver, which is possible, but I think with all the value that opened up today with the injuries, Dalvin Cook is out, opening up Latavius Murray, even though it's not that big of a drop from Cook to Murray. At least you know he's going to get the bulk of the carries. You also, we saw that Marlon Mack is out. That opens up Wilkins at 3,700. We have Jay Ajayi, who missed practice again, and Sproles, who's expected to be out, opening up at 4,300. Corey Clement. Can I rank Clement, Latavius Murray, Gio, and Jordan Howard? Like, in terms of what? In terms of raw projection, or in terms of who I think, including salary, is the better player? Because those are two different questions to me. T.Y. Hilton, Manny Sanders, or D-Hop and John Brown? Give me the balance of T.Y. and Manny Sanders. Is Clement a lock? At 4,300, I think that he is a really, really solid play. Okay, including salary, I think that Clement's going to be the best value there. I think Murray would be second. And then I think Gio and Howard is a toss-up. I kind of prefer Howard to Gio, personally. But I understand if you think that Gio's going to catch a ton of passes this week. With DraftKings being full PPR, that makes a lot of sense. 3 mid-tier running backs, Murray, Gio, and Clement, instead of playing Kamara and Gurley in cash. See, that's going to be the interesting question, right? Because, like, having all this value now at running back, so, like, let's just plug those guys in, right? So let's go to running back. And, guys, not shocking that I've been on Wilkins all offseason, so I think that he's in play at the very least. If you go with 2 of them, now you can fit 1 of the running backs, right? If you want to go with the mid-range value running backs that we've basically had all week, right? So you add... Where did he go? Gio Bernard at 5,900. Murray at 5,800. Now basically the only show in town for Minnesota, and they're favored by about 70,000 points this weekend against Buffalo, who can't stop the run. It's just a matter of, are they going to bring one of the other kids along and give them carries in this game, right? Because, like, they had a good preseason. Where is this game? Minnesota's backup running backs had a really good preseason. You know, Boone looked good. Thomas looked good. So we'll see if one of them gets activated. We'll see how many running backs they have. Right now, it does look like Latavius Murray is going to be the only one there. And if he is, and he gets 20 touches against this Buffalo team, I think he's outstanding. You don't think Wilkins is too thin in cash with all the other value? I think he's thinner. But if you want to save 2K, to me it comes down to, do you want Coleman or Latavius Murray and a cheap tight end, or do you want Wilkins and a beef up your tight end situation, or not pay for one, have one less value at wide receiver and beef him up to a mid-range? I think there's a lot of different routes that you can go, where before this value opened up, there was way less routes. You know, there was way different. You know, with Coleman at 64 and Howard at 65, we were starved for guys. And it was like, you're going to play 3 mid-range players at running back, right? Like, before, it looked like this, right? It looked like this, and then maybe Gio, right? Or now, let's say Murray. They're kind of the same price. So if you played 3 guys like that, that leaves you 5,200. Instead of being able to go stars and scrubs, you can go stars and scrubs now where you couldn't do that before. We only had value at wide receiver. Now we have value at running back too. Is Wilkins' cash game only not much upside versus Eagles' stout run D? At 3,700, what does he have to do? That's kind of your question, right? If he falls into the end zone, that's 6, right? He needs 10. Does he have 30-point upside? Probably not. Does he need to score 30 points for you? Probably not. You know? So I think he is a fine tournament play because if you think he can get to 50 points, which is what? 70 yards from scrimmage, 2 catches, and a touchdown. That's a pretty modest day. You know, that's a pretty modest day, especially considering that another red zone target in Doyle is out as well. Coleman or Howard in cash? I prefer Coleman. He's cheaper, similar projected output. Is Hunt a good cash and GPP play? Yes, but now there's a lot more running backs on the table than there were 2 days ago. Watson or Cousins in cash? Give me Watson. I don't want too many shares of that Minnesota passing game in a game where they might not have to pass the entire second half. And we spoke off air before I went live to record this that we were, everybody said, who's Eli Apple covering this week? He's covering nobody. He's out. So now the guy who can't get ahead of Eli Apple on the depth chart has to guard somebody on that Texans exterior. Is Luck a good cash game QB with all the values? Are better to spend up at QB? We can look at quarterbacks. You guys know that I prefer to spend down, right, at quarterback. So, like, I don't typically spend up here, but I think you can get to Mahomes if you want to. I think it'll be... I think that Mahomes projects very similarly to somebody like Cam Newton and Deshaun Watson this week, right? They're within a couple of points based on raw projection. So if I can save that 1,000 and spend up somewhere else, it turns a 3.5K player into a 4.5K player. That's a big jump. It turns a 7.8 or a 9K player, turns an 8K, 7.5 to 8K player into almost a 9K player. It's a big jump, right? It boosts you up. If you have 5,500 or 5,800 left for your tight end, it moves you up to the Kelsey Ertz range. So I'd prefer to save at quarterback. I think that Matt Ryan is in play again at quarterback for cash. I think that Luck, like, I want to say Luck is amazing at 5,600, but I just think that I'd rather spend up here for Cam Newton at 6K against Cincinnati, or Deshaun Watson against the Giants at 6,100. I'll spend the extra 3, 4, 500. To me, Andrew Luck is kind of Matt Ryan-ish right now, where before he was very dynamic, could score on the ground, would throw for 300 yards on the regular, multiple touchdowns, different sort of story. Fuller in cash was asked by D. Dameron. Will Fuller. Love the volume that he's gotten in this first game that he played, right? My issue with Will Fuller previously was that he would get 2, 3, or 4 targets a game and catch 1 or 2 balls, and one of them would be a 50-yard touchdown last year with Deshaun Watson, and that's completely unsustainable. Last week, he caught a 39-yard touchdown pass, which is awesome, and people say, see, it was sustainable. He got 9 targets, y'all. If he's going to get this many targets again, especially considering the matchup that he should see on the outside this week with Eli Apple out, and now the guy that is behind Eli Apple is going to be covering him, guy who can't get on the field for Eli Apple being in his way now has to deal with Will Fuller. I think Will Fuller is a big upside play. I don't know if I like him in cash as much as some of the players that are priced a little bit above him or a little bit below him. Fournette's still questionable. If Fournette is out, I like Keelan Cole. I don't know if I like him better than Fuller. That'd be a good question. I haven't decided on that one yet. I like Allen Robinson, who's a lot cheaper. As you guys always know, I always like Cooper Kupp. I like Devin Funchess with Olsen out. Those are way cheaper options. If you come up just a little bit from him, you get T.Y. Hilton at 6,700. You get Brandon Cooks at 7,000, who's got 9 targets each of the first 2 games, or 8 and 9 targets the first 2 games, which is a very good amount of supply for him, and going to be in a competitive game this week. You could play Amari Cooper, but I'm not going to. Emmanuel Sanders at 64, just a couple hundred more. Saw 11 targets one game, 4 the next. What happens if Will Fuller goes back to 4 targets is my question. And he could. I don't think he will, but I think he could. With no pass-catching tight end there, I think he stays around 5 to 7 targets, hoping for that 7 targets as well. Smiz, use your crowns. No. I'm saving them up. I'm going to buy a rocket ship. Can we look in the 6K range at receivers? Seems like there's not many plays outside of T.Y. Okay, I just did that kind of, I think. Sanders has bad weather. I'll check the weather on Sunday morning. You guys know this, right? Like, everybody worries about the weather all week long, and it's something that I kind of try not to do because things can change massively. And if you plant that seed in your head about the weather early, like, to me, it's more like, okay, there's a possibility of weather. I'm in a holding pattern. We'll check it on Sunday morning and see. That's kind of just the route that I go. right? Like, because I don't want to work myself up about it and plant in my mind that I can't play these players when I probably can or might be able to on Sunday morning, right? Dalton AJ stack. I always like AJ Green. Don't have a problem with it, and they've been extremely efficient so far in offense. They get across midfield. They've scored as much as any other team. You like Barkley. If he's going to get 10-plus targets a week, sure, I like Barkley too. Chiefs super stack. It won the Millionaire Maker last year, last week, and now they have one of the highest totals again. Wow, that looks messed up. Give me a second. That goes there. 100 bits from Jay Cutter Life. Thank you very much. What was the question I was asking? Chiefs super stack, right? So, told you guys I had to fix the whole thing, right? This morning, and I messed it up already. So, I think a game stack of this game is 100% in play, right? If you look at this San Francisco-Kansas City game, can you get all these guys in here? Goodwin might play, might not, right? So you want to play Mahomes, you want to play him, you want to play Kelsey, you want to get Kareem Hunt in there, sure. Let's bring it back with somebody, or Watkins, whatever. Just play all of them, right? If Goodwin plays, fine, plug him in at 5,500. Give me a defense. Give me somebody who's cheap. I mean, hell, we can go Kittle too, right? Just stack all the guys. And then defense, how about the Texans? Much of a bitter taste as they left in everybody's mouth last week. And then Clement. 4,300. Then we got 4,700 for a wide receiver. Yeah, I think you can do it. Hell, you can go down to like the Cowboys. Right? Cowboys here, wide receiver. 5,300 for a wide receiver. Take your pick. Right? You can most definitely stack this game. You know, it can 100% happen. Is staying with Gurley, Kamara, Clement, and using Boyd for value in cash still okay? Or is it a donkey move with all the value at running back? I think it's fine. I think that it's going to differentiate you from a lot of the different plays that are going to be made, because a lot of people are just going to hammer that value. And some of the value at running back isn't amazing value. I think Clement is the obvious one, and I think you nailed the right one. So if you go with Murray or you go with Coleman on top of them, you say, okay, fine, but like, you really feel and believe, and rightfully so, that one of the two of Gurley and Kamara should end with, 30 fantasy points, and the other one should be over 20. So that's 55 fantasy points between the two of them. Do you think that Coleman and Latavius are going to get 50-something fantasy points between them? If not, where are the other people going to make that up that you're going to beat them? So, like, look at the lineup that you think you're going to be playing against if you play that lineup, and project it out. And do you project higher? And if you do, then I like it fine. I want to play the highest projected lineup that I can find in cash with the most upside as well. Pardon me. A couple of people in my family are sick this week. So, like, I'm not sick, but my throat is bugging me. Worried about Kelsey with the matchup in San Francisco if he plays? No, not really. Kelsey is matchup proof. Coleman or Gio? Coleman less snaps, but far bigger favorite. Yeah, I like Coleman a lot. You want running back stars. That's why you value the running backs. I don't think that's a problem. Just know that there is massive upside on DraftKings for wide receivers as well. So when you find a value running back that's going to get 20 touches, that's why everybody kind of gravitates toward that, because then they can just plug in the 10-plus target guys at wide receiver. Allison and Ertz are Kupp and Kittle. I think both are fine. I think I prefer Allison and Ertz. D. Dammer with another 100 bits. Thoughts on tight end now with Doyle out? I mean, I don't want Ebron. I don't think much has changed. I don't think it changes much. I think if you were playing Doyle, then yeah, now you're playing Ebron. Like, if you were just like, I'm playing Doyle in my lineups this week, then you're just playing Ebron now. I don't think Ebron becomes like 50% owned at all. I think whoever was doing whatever they were doing at tight end is still going to do whatever they were doing at tight end, and the people that are going to play Doyle are just going to play Ebron. People who are going to play Ertz or Kelsey are still going to do that. I don't think it changes all that much. More targets for T.Y.? I mean, he can't really stomach many more targets. He's getting 11 a game right now. Do I think Clement will get 20 touches? Probably not. I think 15 to 20 is fair, though. I mean, if he gets 20, that's gravy, right? What do you have last week? 11? I think he's a 15 to 20 touch guy this week. I still think they run the backup guys that they run just because that's the way Philly does things. Thoughts on DJ after the Arizona coaching staff finally realized that they were using him incorrectly? I mean, I think he's tournament viable. I don't want him anywhere near a cash game but I think you can take a stab at him in tournaments depending on whether or not you think you can overweight the field. I think people are going to that's when you want to buy, right? So like when players do really well, okay, their price goes up and their ownership goes up. So as their price goes up and their ownership goes up, that's when you want to get off, right? And you want to find another way to go, because when players do poorly for a couple of weeks, their price comes down and the ownership comes down. And if you think there's going to be a dead cat bounce at some point and this player is going to take a leap forward, then that's when you want to hop on board with that player. If you think that David Johnson's going to get 20 to 25 touches this week with about 6, 7, 8 targets, fine. My question is, how are they going to get him the ball? Because it's not like Sam Bradford has looked good at all. Mahomes, Ebron, Minnesota, or Watson, Ertz, Houston. I like Watson, Ertz, Houston a lot more than that first one. Watson gives you the same upside as Mahomes. Ertz gives you a way better floor and upside than Ebron, and defense is defense. What's the most optional cash game lineup build with all the value? Don't know yet. Favorite value running backs. We've gone over them a couple of times. There's a lot of value that opened up. And this is the thing. So, like, more choices means more mistakes possible for people to make. So zero in on the guys that you believe are going to get the most volume and have the highest touchdown equity and focus on those guys. Can I talk value tight ends this week? You got to ask me like a specific question, but yeah, I can. I don't know, under 2,900, maybe Jake Butt has seen good volume. He's just got to get himself into the end zone, right? He seems to be kind of a Kyle Rudolph type of tight end in terms of fantasy, where he's not going to get 10 targets, but maybe he gets between 4 and 6 every week. And those weeks where he gets into the end zone once, and maybe he has a week where he gets 2 touchdowns, that's going to be the week that you're going to want to smash him. But knowing when that week comes, who knows? But at 2,700, I think he's at least in play. Ricky Seals-Jones to me is not somebody I'm focusing on, regardless of the fact that he got 6 targets the last 2 weeks. I just don't think that offense is going anywhere, especially against the Bears, who are one of the toughest defenses in the league. Ian Thomas saw an increase in snaps, but he's not really going to be a pass-catching option. We know where the targets are going to go for Carolina. I don't want to pick a guy that has to fall into the end zone. Austin Hooper probably going to be the highest owned player, at 3K or below at tight end because of his volume, because they utilize him in the red zone, and, he has a good touchdown prop this week. Not a prop. I don't want to say that because I don't really rely on props. He has a high touchdown expectation this week based on that offense and his usage in the red zone. Is Dallas defense good enough to target against Seattle's O-line? Yes. I want to target. I like it when the puzzle pieces fit together, right? So the Cowboys have been getting a lot of pressure on opposing quarterbacks and coming out of games with a lot of sacks. And Seattle's defense has allowed 12 sacks through 2 games. I'm a big fan of having those 2 things come together. And at 2,200, there isn't all that much risk unless Seattle takes no sacks and puts up like 35 points. Cellblock LOL, thank you for the Twitch Prime sub. Watson, Lat Murray, or Cam and Hunt for DK Cash. I mean, I don't even think that it's a... Okay, no, it is, because it's like 100 or 200 different. I mean, it's real close. I probably prefer Watson and Latavius Murray. A lot more mouths to feed in Kansas City right now. And they might have to just run out the clock constantly with Latavius. He might get a ton of second half work. Julio or Hopkins? I prefer Julio. Kamara volume versus Gurley volume scare you at all? A little bit. It did last week, but the matchup this week for Kamara is a lot different considering how much they funnel targets, the Falcons, to opposing running backs, and he is probably the best pass-catching running back in the league. All apologies to Sproles and Chris Thompson and those other guys. It's in terms of like a high-volume running back, no running back is better at catching the ball and turning it into big plays than Alvin Kamara. Do I prefer going wide receiver value to secure elite pass-catching running backs? I prefer to spend up at running back when I can. If there is cheap value at running back that's going to get a lot of volume, then I definitely go that route. DT seems heavily underpriced for the targets he's getting. I know he's been dropping everything, though. Yeah, that's a problem for me. And they were utilizing other guys in the red zone as well. They were going to Lindsey, and they were going to the other rookie wide receiver, and they were going to Cortland Sutton. It's like, it just seemed like, I don't know, fear of missing out on DT? I'm confused. Like, you think that he's an opportunity cost player this week? Like, if you don't play Demaryius Thomas, then you're going to lose? Like, I don't think he's near anybody's cash games. You know, I mean, he's got good volume. He got 11 and 10 targets each of the last 2 weeks, but I don't think it's a fear of missing out spot. Zeke GPP at super low ownership? Yeah, sure. Is Chris Thompson going to see Kareem Hunt-like targets every week now that he has Smith? I mean, here's what I think about the Washington backfield. Okay, and this is just anecdotal, right? There's nothing really to this to back it up. This is just kind of me with my history in daily fantasy, kind of talking and anecdotally about this offense. Adrian Peterson had a ridiculously good first week, right? 26 carries. Again, it was against Arizona. Against Indy, a game that they were losing, he got outsnapped by Chris Thompson. Chris Thompson, who outsnapped him in a losing effort, 14 targets. They're going to have to score to keep up with Green Bay. Green Bay, yes, they are a team that if you give volume to a running back, they could abuse that defense. So if they get a lead, they're going to pound Adrian Peterson, and rightfully so. But if this game is close, I think that they snap somewhat evenly, and I think that Chris Thompson gets another 7, 8, 9 targets in this game because there aren't that many reliable receivers, and Alex Smith is captain checkdown. DLA Course 01, thank you for the Twitch Prime sub. Another new member of the VIP. Guys, show him some love in the chat. Spam those emotes. 21 of the best emotes on Twitch, and I don't see them enough in our chat. Watson or Cam, a coin flip for you. Yes, I like both of them. I think both are fine. I have not made a final decision on either one. Those are the two that I'm kind of focusing on right now. Scary not having a piece of this KC San Francisco game in cash. I think there's enough other games with a total of 50 that you don't have to, right? Like, it's not like every game is at 43 and then that game is at 56. You know, there's high totals all over the board. New Orleans and Atlanta, super high total. Obviously, that game, super high total. Minnesota, very high team total, even though the game total isn't that high. They have a very high team total. Houston, theoretically, has a very high team total. Rams and Chargers, very fast-paced, very up-tempo game with a high total as well. I think there's a lot of scoring on this slate. I think it's going to be a very high-scoring week, more similar to week 1 than week 2. I only have one this week, Kamara or Michael Thomas. Give me Alvin Kamara. Do I think that Team Jam-A-Min is viable on DK? Yes. Okay, that trio, yes. When you say Team Jam-A-Min, I think you're doing 3 running backs. But if you mix in Julio Jones, now that opens up the flex spot to use for one of the value running backs like Wilkins or Clement at 4,300. You'd probably have to go with 2 3K wide receivers to make it work in a 3K tight end. But yeah, you could definitely do it. Hunter Gio for cash. I probably prefer Gio for cash just based on... okay, let's look. Like, everything changed right before I went on the air. So these 3 players, right? Kareem Hunt, good volume, has not been utilized in the passing game through 2 weeks. Gio Bernard, no Mixon. We know he should get 17 touches based on past performance with this offense. And a lot of that's going to come through the air. That's why I think I prefer him to Hunt. And then how palatable is Murray? We have to see how many running backs they have active on this team come the weekend. So if they don't have a lot of running backs active, all of a sudden,
I loved
Latavius
it,
Murray,
the Cleveland schemer.
he becomes like a 20-touch guy against a team that can't stop running backs with a high team total and a heavy probability they're going to be playing from way ahead the entire game, which all of a sudden turns them into somebody that, you know, you want the guy with mop-up duty getting 20 touches and a lot of goal line work as well. Germ, you lulled at the Cleveland schemer thing from last night. I kind of named the throwback to Baker Mayfield for the touchdown to the 2 points, whatever that was. 13 months in a row. Thank you for the continued support with the tier 1 sub. Mike Boone this week on Team Jam-A-Min, 3K team preseason gem. He was, and that's what I was talking about earlier. with those Minnesota guys is that, he looked real good in preseason. It's a matter of how many running backs they have active. And if you think they're going to split the work like they've done with Cook and Latavius, and if Latavius doesn't play the second half, if they get up really huge, are they going to keep running Latavius, or are they going to put in the rookie and maybe get him 10 or 12 touches against Buffalo? I think that he's not cash game viable, but I think that the backup's going to be tournament viable. With Foster and Smith back, Hunt doesn't look viable. I'm confused. I don't know what that means. I'm lost. Are you saying defensively for San Francisco that you're not going to play Hunt? Being scared of San Francisco's defense has never been something that I've done for the last 3 years. And I don't plan on starting now. Look what they gave up to the Detroit running backs last week. This is not a defense to be afraid of. I don't care who they get back. They just don't have enough on that roster to make me scared of playing. At best, they're a middling defense, which means they're neutral. Then it just comes down to the offense. This is a high-scoring environment. You're going to want to have players against them. They're not a team I'm fading running backs against at all. They're not the Bears. They're not the Jaguars. They're not a team that scares me defensively. The over-under is huge in San Francisco. Play all the dudes and win. Sometimes it's that simple. The over-under was huge in Kansas City and Pittsburgh last week. Guy played all the dudes, won $1 million. Sometimes it's that simple. You don't have to overthink things. Boyd versus Sanu. Boyd. Any love for DJ Moore as a GPP flyer? No, not for me. Is there merit to... I like the kid's talent. I just don't... No, not yet. He doesn't get enough... He's not getting enough usage. And I don't go for coach speak. I don't trust coaches. Cupper Boyd, totally different price points. Like they're not, those aren't, that should not be an argument for you. If anything, it's a 2v2. Do I ever do projections or more of a field player? I used to do my own. And then all the sites basically came up with the same projection process. Now a lot of sites have basically the same process. And maybe an exception on one or two players. So why spend all the work anymore when I can just look at stuff and I can spot the blind spots in the different sites' projections and kind of say, okay, well, they're always high on this or they're always low on this. So I'll bump this up for myself. I can just kind of do that. I've been doing this long enough to be able to do it myself now without taking the time to manually go through my spreadsheet and do stuff anymore. Do I think Wilkins will be over 15% owned in GPPs? Probably not. A-Rob, 7 and 14 targets the last 2 weeks. Do I think 7 will be a floor in targets for him moving forward? I'd be hard-pressed to think that he would have a 4-target game without being injured. He might come in with like a 5 or a 6 one day. But I think that range is about his lowest that he should see. My problem with the Bears is passing volume, right? How many passes are they going to throw in a game? Do you ever think you're going to get a 45 or a 50 pass game? Have I been profitable for the first 2 weeks? I've been profitable in head-to-heads, not in tournaments. Sick and Snipes, thank you for the tier 1 sub. Appreciate you. Can I rank those second-tier running backs? CMC, MG3, Saquon, and Zeke. Give me MG3, then CMC, then Saquon. 18 to 25 usually for Mitchell. Yes, Trubisky. Yeah, he's not... he's going to throw more this year than he threw last year. That's for sure. He's looked extremely underwhelming so far. There was thoughts, and I was one of the people who thought that he might take a big leap this year, as quarterbacks tend to do in their second year, but he has not looked like he's ready to take a big leap. Yeah, I got it, Ashy. Want to know something scary? I know Seattle is bad, but Mitch looked good. All right. Is Ito Smith a viable GPP player? Is a waste? He doesn't get enough touches for me, and I don't think that we need him. I think he was more viable before all the guys were named out today. When there was no value, and it's okay, maybe he'll get 8 to 10 touches, and he's 3K, and there's nobody else on the board. I don't think you need him anymore. Like Mahomes, second-year QB, like Wentz last year, like Goff last year. Quarterbacks tend to take a big step forward in their second year. And especially when they get a lot of weapons around, and they brought in Trey Burton, they brought in Allen Robinson. They have a change-up back like Cohen who can move the ball, and Howard has worked a lot in the offseason to be a better pass catcher, and Nagy is an offensive genius, and they bring him in, and Trubisky just doesn't look the way that you would think that he should look with all of those things added. The news today changed the entire slate. At least it all didn't come out on Sunday morning and give us an hour and a half and we're all scrambling around with our hair on fire. He also sat behind Alex Smith, who never turns the ball around. Yeah. I mean, I don't think that's why Mahomes is lighting the world on fire right now. I think Mahomes is the deal. I made that argument all offseason starting in May at the Fantasy Football Summit at ESPN. As you guys probably remember. What else we got? So the value running backs on the slate, right? That's where everything changed today. Has Tyreek finally become a viable cash play on FD? I probably would prefer him on DK. Mahomes is just flat out good. It's true, he is. Aiken, Ellington, GPP? Probably not. Baker Mayfield next? Probably. What is Mahomes' floor this week? I mean, it's hard to tell with quarterbacks because it comes down to efficiency and throwing touchdowns. Because what if he has what if they score a defensive touchdown, he throws for 2, but Hunt runs a long one, they get a kick return for a touchdown, they get a fumble return for a touchdown, and Hunt runs in 1 or 2. And all those things could very possibly happen. If I can fit Mahomes in with a cheap defense for cash, should I, or should I go with Matt Ryan with a better D? I'd prefer Mahomes to Ryan if you can make it happen. I don't know that you have to go all the way. That's 1,300 difference on DraftKings, right? To go from Matt Ryan to Mahomes. So I don't think you need to go that far. I think you can go up to Cam Newton and Deshaun at 6,000 and 6,100 and change your defense by 400, not 1,300. You don't need to completely punt defense. You can. In Best Buys this week, I basically told you guys who I think is one of the better cheap defenses. I mentioned it on The Edge as well. So read my article or listen to the Edge podcast. We'll go through all of that. 250 and 2 plus 30 rushing yards is 19 points. Yeah. And I think that both Cam and Watson can do that. I think that Mahomes can do that as well. So why pay the extra 1,000? Cam or Watson in cash? That's chocolate or vanilla, man. Which one do you prefer? I don't think there's a right or a wrong answer between Cam or Watson right now where we sit on Friday afternoon at 12:30 Pacific time. I really think that those are the 2 best cash game quarterbacks on DraftKings for week 3. And it just comes down to which one you like better. If I built the rest of my lineup and or let's say I built a lineup with, which one is 6,100? Deshaun is 6,100. So if I built a lineup around Deshaun Watson, right? And I built that whole lineup out and it was 100 too much. I would not blow up the lineup and start over. I would just switch Watson to Cam and I'd be okay with that. Cup versus Allison and cash. I prefer Cup, but Allison's workload has been good. You prefer chocolate vanilla swirl? Unfortunately, DraftKings is not a super flex league or a 2QB league, so you cannot play both. You must make a choice. We do not have chocolate vanilla swirl today. Prefer Ryan if you're running Julio to Watson. Have sacrificed Kittle at tight end with Watson. So you're going down to, I mean, that's fine. I just think Watson has a higher ceiling. I think Watson and Cam have a higher ceiling to Ryan, even though they probably have a very similar median projection. Thoughts on Funchess this week? I like the value that Funchess gets, or the volume that he gets, and he hasn't been priced up yet. I think he's fine. And you get good red zone looks as well. And he's priced basically the same as Cooper Kupp. Breeze or Ryan this week? Give me Ryan over Breeze. He's much cheaper. I do like Breeze, though. I'm going to have him in tournaments. Over under Matt Ryan, 3 rushing TDs. It's close, but I'll take the under. Or do you mean on the season? Because on the season, I also will take the under. Problem with Cam Watson is the pick of the draw is to getting Kansas City exposure in cash. I don't see the problem. Play either one of them and then play the position players from Kansas City. Salary out of play, Ryan or Watson? Watson. What do I think of Thomas and Julio and their 1K price difference? I think I like Julio. Julio's too cheap. T.Y. Hilton or Cooks in a GPP? I think Hilton's going to be the cash game play and higher owned, so give me Cooks for GPP. I think a lot of people are going to have Cooper Kupp, which is going to hold the ownership down on Brandon Cooks, as well as him being in the same price range as somebody like T.Y. Hilton, who has similar volume and is cheaper. So both of those players are going to have higher ownership, so Cooks becomes the better GPP play to me. And he's getting the volume now, so it's just a matter of time before he catches and busts a long one. Sammy Watkins, 6,200 on FD and okay cash game play. Probably not for me. I think there's enough value out there that you don't have to go with him as a cash game play. I think he's fine for tournaments. Are you doing any super game stacks on GPP this year, like 6 players from one game? I mean, you mean game stacks? Yeah. I think game stacks are fine. Who survives Thanos' snaps, Cam or Watson? After watching Cam get blasted last week on that play where he gave himself up, I'm going to go with Cam. Allison or Boyd? Boyd's way cheaper, so I prefer him. I think they have a similar volume supply. Boyd cash game viable? To me, yes. Thoughts on Thielen this week? I'm not buying the... you're hoping that they get a touchdown, and it better come in the first 2 quarters. If the game goes the way the game is supposed to go, meaning that they get out to a big lead. Let's say they're up 2 touchdowns at halftime. Nothing like, I'm not saying they're going to bench the starters, right? Let's say they get up 14 points. Let's say it's 17-3 at halftime. They're not throwing all that much in the second half if the Bills can't score. They're going to bleed the clock. They're going to run the ball. They're going to play field position. They're going to keep Buffalo pinned deep. It's a defensive-minded coach that wants to ground and pound. Try a dog with a Twitch Prime for 3 months in a row, getting the silver VIP badge in the chat. Thank you very much for the 3 months, and congratulations on unlocking that new VIP badge next to your name. If we're high on Cooks and Kupp, why aren't we talking about Woods as a GPP pivot, as a GOP pivot? I don't think he's going to run for office for the Democrats or the Republicans, but if you like Woods, go for it. I'm not against it. They're all getting enough volume. I just think the others are higher upside plays. Woods or Watkins? I prefer Watkins. Adams at 7,600 or Green at 75. Give me Green. I like Adams for GPP, but I'm not going to... I have to take a stand somewhere. Like, you guys know my stance, right? I can't play everyone, right? So, like, I have to take a stand on certain players, and sometimes that means that I end up fading players that I think are good because I have to get my allocations on the players that I think are best, right? I believe in taking something that you're an A or an A- and turning it into an A+. I don't believe in taking something that I'm a C or a C- and trying to turn it into a B- or a C+. There's no point in that. Do what you're good and be great at it, right? So if I'm like, well, this guy's all right, why would I waste 5%? Well, I'll force 5% of this guy into my lineups, even though the crowd's probably going to have 15. I'm going to be underweight on the guy, but at least I'll have a couple of shares of him. It's not, to me, that's not worth it. I'd rather take a stand on the guys that I have and have 5 or 10% more of the guy that I really, really like and overweight the field even more. If the guy that I really like is going to be 10 or 15% and I go from 25 to 30%, that's better for me in the sense that when my guy goes off, I'm going to leverage the entire field versus when that other guy goes off. And if I don't have him, it's like, well, I'm just not going to, maybe I just don't win this week. As opposed to if I have 5% of the guy, I probably still don't win that week. Wish I could play everybody. That would make things easier. No, it wouldn't. It would cost you a lot of money. When you hit big. Exactly. With all the value opening up, do I change my GPP strat at all and fade some of the running back value chalk? I mean, I'm going to take a stand on some of them. I can't play 30, 40% of 5 guys, right? So, like, I can't have 40% of all 5 of the value running backs. So I'm going to take a position on 2 of them. I don't know which 2 those are yet because everything literally just came out before we went live. And my answers aren't important, right? Like, who I have is somewhat unimportant because I don't do these shows to give you guys a lineup, right? I do these shows to help you guys with your decision making so that you can make the best decisions you can make leading up to lock so that you can be in a position for yourself to be profitable. It's not about, hey, Al, give us your lineup and then we'll run it. And if you do good this week, then I do good this week. That's not the point. The point is you need to learn how to make your own good decisions so that you can play, right? So that you can be profitable on your own. So that's why we talk more about process than play this guy. This is your lineup for this week. And that's why like the showdown videos on YouTube kind of bug me from time to time, because people look and I just kind of click through lineups, and I think people just go through on YouTube and see where the lineup is filled and aren't listening to the words that I'm saying, and they pause it and they just enter that lineup, and then they jump into my mentions of, hey man, your lineup didn't win this week. I didn't give out a lineup. What are you talking about? I'm not here to give you a lineup. Hey Al, what's your lineup this week? Funny you asked that, horse player. I'm never going to give you guys a lineup, but on Sunday mornings on the Anti-Tinkercast, if you donate 2,500 bits or 5 gifted subs, you can pick one player from my Millie Maker allocation. You name any player you want, I'll tell you exactly what my allocation on that player is in the Millie Maker. But I'm never going to give out a lineup. I don't believe in it. I think it's like, I can't deal with lineup sellers. It's like snake oil salesman. Hey, give me money and I'll give you a winning lineup. No, you won't. Kamara, Fuller, or Michael Thomas and Coleman in cash? In cash? Give me Thomas and Coleman. You just pick up my head-to-heads. You can. They're in the lobbies right now. Smith eats so much sushi. I'm teaching you how to cut it. That's right. Can you get your allocation on a player for your cash games? Well, I play one cash game lineup, so it's binary. It'll be a yes or no answer. But typically speaking, my highest owned players in GPP are in my cash game lineup. You don't trust Roto Radar? I don't know. They seem to have the same exact office setup that I do and the same right hand. It would just be, is he in your cash game? Yes or no? Jacob Amble. Did I pronounce that right? Yeah, it is Amble. Thank you for the tier 1 sub. Appreciate you, man. Gordon going to blow up Sunday night, price to rocket next week. Okay. I wonder how many snaps Josh Gordon's going to play on Sunday night. That's all I can think of. Like, I think he plays, but I don't know if he plays more than like 40 or 50% of the snaps. Maybe he does. I just don't think he plays that much. That doesn't mean he won't catch a long touchdown. I just don't think he plays 80% of snaps. Ready for this Mount St. Julio eruption. Me too, man. Happens twice a year usually. I'm waiting for it. You didn't get the joke about them having the same hand as me? Oh, they took one of my Instagram pictures and passed it off as their own. Like, I took a picture of my TV and like people were laughing. It's like, oh, why'd you have to show us your remote? Because like I'm like sitting there like the picture is like me holding a remote. I'm holding the remote because I had DraftKings up on my computer screen and the remote was blocking my balance. And they literally took that picture and posted on YouTube and was like, or on Instagram as their story and said, hey, what does your setup look like? Well, that ain't your setup, bro. That's my setup. Gordon, 20 snaps and about 60 air yards. Probably more air yards than that if he plays that many snaps. He'll probably fire one to him for 50 on one play. Just jumped in. Who are our cash game locks? Latavius and Cowboys D. I mean, I think the biggest cash game lock right now is Clement. And then there's a lot of choices. Do I feel like Levitan mentioned about Tyreek's touches being worth more than other guys is applicable to Kamara as well? Yes, and definitely this week. With how inefficient Atlanta has been for 2 seasons now at stopping running backs from catching the ball. They almost encourage running backs or teams to throw the ball to running backs. It's like, okay, let's throw it to running back and then we'll tackle. Right? Well, now they've lost their 2 best tacklers. So now you're going to get the ball to running backs and then you can't tackle them. So it becomes a problem. Young stretch marks. What the hell name is that? Thank you for the tier 1 sub. But what the hell name is that? You guys, look, we've talked about this before. You got to be very careful with the DFS name that you pick for yourself, because if you win something, you become known as that forever. People see me at like live finals or at events or whatever, and they don't call me Al. They don't call me by my name. They don't say, hey, Mr. Zeidenfeld. They don't say, hey, Al. Hey, Alvin, how are you? They say, Smiz. Smizzle. It's like never names. Like somebody's going to be named like Fat Fart Daddy 69. Don't name yourself that. That's going to be your name forever. But I do like it. It made me laugh. Appreciate you. Naked Mahomes. Okay for cash. Yeah, I'm fine with that. But as I've said numerous times, I don't think you need to. I'm always okay with not pairing a quarterback with a pass catcher for a couple of weeks. Okay, here's how. If the quarterback's going to spread it out to multiple different receivers, I'm okay with that, right? So like Tom Brady doesn't always focus on one guy. So you don't always have to get Gronk with Brady in stacks because he throws touchdowns to everybody. Right? He throws them to three different running backs. He throws them to 3 different wide receivers. He also uses his tight end. If you think that he's not going to throw a bunch to one guy, then fine. But with Mahomes so far, he's thrown 27% of his passes at Tyreek Hill and 27% of his passes at Kelsey. So they're very concentrated with who he goes to. So, like Matt Ryan, if you're going to play Matt Ryan without Julio Jones, does he always throw touchdowns, Julio Jones? Obviously not. But the majority of his passes and the majority of his red zone passes go to him. So if you think that wide receiver is going to go off, then and you think that quarterback's going to go off, then you should probably play them both together. Keenum okay for cash. Don't think you need it. I don't think that you need Keenum for cash this week. Like he's 5,200. If you need the extra money at Baltimore, I don't think you need to go under like 5,600. I like Bortles though, if Fournette is out, and I chronicled that on Twitter earlier this week. Bortles averages way more air yards, more attempts, more yards, less interceptions, more touchdowns. I like Bortles and his receivers to be a sneaky, not sneaky. I hate that. It's become overused. I expect Bortles and his receivers to be under-owned in tournaments versus what they should be if Fournette is out. So there's an if-then statement for you. If Fournette's in, I'm off of Bortles stacks. If Fournette's out, you should probably think about Bortles stacks in the very least. Thoughts on Cardinals D? Not for me. I know Pete likes them, but I'm probably not going to have them. I mean, they're 2,400. I'm either going to dial down to the Cowboys or dial up to like the Texans at 2,800 because Clowney's supposed to be back. Sub 4 wide receivers besides Boyd. We can go take a look. Let's go to wide receivers. Bring this down so you guys can actually see them past my big old head. Snead has actually seen pretty good volume, guys. We were wondering who the secondary wide receiver was going to be, right? It's like John Brown's gotten good looks and Crabtree's gotten good looks, and Snead has looked good through a couple of weeks. 4,000. I don't hate him. He's not going to be on many people's radars. Sanu, not very much upside here. DJ Moore, somebody mentioned him earlier, not somebody that I'm going to be playing. Moncrief, again, if Fournette's out, I think he's interesting. Ridley, not getting a ton of targets, but at least he got 5 last week, caught a touchdown. I think he's too much on people's radars at 3,700. 3,700, obviously, I prefer Boyd. Looking down a little bit, the Bird Alert, 4 and 5 targets. Again, it's thin down here, guys, right? Tavon Austin, probably a no. It's going to be a no from me. Kamar Aiken, Cortland Sutton, very interesting. 6 and 5 targets and getting good usage in the red zone. I like the kid's athleticism. He's going to have a week where he catches a touchdown and has like 80 yards receiving on 4 or 5 catches. Don't know when that's going to be, but he's going to get one of those in the next month. Bears defense? Yeah, I like the Bears D. John Brown will easily destroy Pac-Man. I think he's good. I do like John Brown. Tannehill and cash on Yahoo. I have no idea what Yahoo's pricing is. And if you think he's a big value, then go for him. I honestly don't know. I haven't played on Yahoo in 3 years. Pettis or Geronimo GPP? Geronimo. Especially with Goodwin back. Might have been asked already, but Gio, Murray, or Coleman for cash if you can only play one. I prefer Gio, then... It's so close right now. All right. Murray depends on how many running backs are going to be active on Sunday. If it's like 2 or 3 running backs available, I think I prefer Murray. I really like Gio because of his pass catching ability, and he's the only show in town. I guess that means that Coleman would come in third, but right now where I sit, I think they're going to bring people on and not give Murray 25 touches. I think Coleman will get 20, so to me right now it's Gio, then Coleman, then Murray. Sanu with Julio. Is that a question? Or are you telling me? Like, can you play Sanu with Julio? I think you can, but I don't think you need to. If Aguilar moves to the outside, does that make him tougher play in cash? They're going to move him all over. He's not going to play 100% of his snaps outside. You know, he might go from playing like 40% of the or 50% of his snaps in the slot to playing 30% of his snaps in the slot. He's not going to go 100% outside. They move their receivers around. Okay to fade Clement with 2 running backs and quad. In tournaments, sure. That always makes sense in a tournament. Fading a popular running back who's not guaranteed 25 touches in tournaments in the NFL is always okay, right? Even a 25 to 30 carry running back can go head up with somebody in the first quarter and get a concussion and they're out for the day. That's all it takes is one hit. Doyle and Cash again. No, he's out. Woohoo! Not woohoo for an injury, but like woohoo for my cash game lineup so that I don't have to worry about playing Doyle. Murray's the most cross-eyed. Is he? Like in his DraftKings photo? Now I'm curious. He is not. He's looking right at you, chat. He's fine. He looks just fine. Look, right there. He's looking straight ahead. He doesn't have summer eyes. Some are looking that way, some are looking that way. Which D, 3K or less, has the most upside? The Texans, the Cowboys, people like Atlanta or Arizona for some reason. Which is most likely to bust in your opinion? The value running backs is Gurley being overlooked. I don't think he's being overlooked. He projects as one of the 2 highest running backs on the slate in terms of raw projection. So I think that he's going to be less owned than Kamara. And I know I say both Kamara and Kamara. It depends on what word comes before it for me. It's strange. I'm weird that way. Dalton a GPP option since they'll probably be more pass heavy with Mixon out. Yeah, I can get on board with that. Jay Rogers makes sense. Any Ebron love? I think he's viable now. I definitely think he's viable. Nook okay for cash? Yeah, you can. I think there are better routes. Like I'd either try to get up to Thomas or I'd come down to Jones. Unless you're already playing Jones, you're saying, can I play D-Hop with him? I mean, with all the running back value, I think people are going to pay up a lot more at wide receiver this week. Because I think you're going to see a lot of lineups with 2 value running backs and Alvin Kamara or Gurley. I think beyond that, you're going to see probably Julio Jones in a lot of lineups, probably Ertz in a lot of lineups, and then they're going to fill out from there. That seems to be what I think the chalk lineup's going to look like. This is not my lineup, okay? Guys, this is not my lineup. All right? Can we get that straight first and foremost? This is not my lineup that I'm going to play. This is just a quick look at what I think people are going to do based on the value that opened up at running back today. Do not copy this lineup and play it. This is just what I think people are going to be most likely to do. Disclaimer over. I think people are going to go with Clement. I think people are going to go with one of the value running backs. Let's just say Gio or Murray. It could be either one. At wide receiver, I think Julio Jones is going to be one of the highest owned. I think that people are going to go with Boyd. I think people are going to go with Kamara. That leaves us how much? 3,900? Do we have enough? Can we do that? Okay, so like Texans, quarterback. Yeah, you can do that. 5,700. Maybe you can't do that. You'd have to come down a little bit. Right? So like there, and then like Murray, and then Sutton. Right? Like you, like I think it's going to look similar to this in some way, manner, shape, or form. Like Hilton. If you're not going to get to him, you go with Hilton there. You can upgrade this to a mid 4K guy. Maybe upgrade this, whatever. So like I think that's going to be the most common build that I think people are going to do. And again, that's just me looking at this after the value that broke right before we started this recording of where I think the most owned players are going to be. And I'm sure some more stuff's going to open up by the weekend. Quick screenshot. That's Al's lineup. Not my lineup. I haven't even made my lineup yet. You think most people will punt tight end and upgrade the wide receiver too? I don't disagree. I think people are going to look for ways to get Ertz in there, and rightfully so. But I think that's going to be like the standard build. If they pay up for Ertz, that's what it's going to kind of look like. If they don't pay up for Ertz, then it's going to be Julio and then like one of the 6-7K wide receivers and like Hooper or Ebron or somebody in that range. Boyd and Gio, too many Bengals for DK Cash. Okay, I don't worry about having two players on a team if I think both players are underpriced. If both players are, okay, so like Kamara and Thomas, right, is a good contrarian route to go because people most of the time pick one or the other. And a lot of people are tied to the position matrix where if they play a running back from the team, they're unlikely to play the wide receiver from that team. But if you look at for the past 2 weeks and you played Breeze, Alvin Kamara, and Michael Thomas in your lineups, you probably did pretty okay. If you play a running back that's heavy, this was from 2015. If you were playing Matt Ryan and Julio Jones and Devonta Freeman in your lineups every week, you did great because they got massive amounts of volume. You can do the same many weeks, probably not this week, with like Phillip Rivers, Melvin Gordon, Keenan Allen. Because all of them are going to get the value versus their salary to pay it off and have upside to 4, 5, 6x their salary as well. So I think it's a possible thing. I don't think it's a necessary thing, but you can definitely do it. Team jam them in with Kamara and Gurley this week for you. People get too fancy when this much value opens up. I do not disagree with that at all. People definitely get fancy play syndrome. So if you just say, look, I'm going to lock in these two guys, go for it. I don't think it's the best value lineup that you're going to build, right? But I do think that it gives you a good cash game floor. We talked about this near the top. You can go with Team Jam 'em in and play Kamara, Gurley, and then like Clement, and then just fill in the rest of the lineup with the best values everywhere else. Who's the Owls cash tight end lock of the century of the week? I don't really have one. What are my changes from Best Buys? We always talk about that on Sunday morning because then I know everything that's happened with with inactives and stuff. So, I mean, I mentioned Clement in Best Buys, right? So like that's not really a change because I kind of figured that was coming down the pipe. I didn't like Cook because I didn't think he'd get the volume. Now Cook is out. And if Murray's in and going to get 20 touches, I really like Murray. But again, this is Friday. We don't have that information yet. Thoughts on Lattimore? Feel like we faded guys against him all last year, but no hesitation all with Julio Jones. Go check Julio's lines against him from last year. Some guys are just indefensible. He may be a little less efficient. Last year he posted like 149 yards against this kid. Julio is Julio. Julio's due for a big game. I don't believe in due. But I think that Julio will get 10-plus targets and has shown a good history against his team in a high-scoring environment. At some point, Sark will figure out that he needs to try and get the ball to this guy in and around the red zone. And maybe Julio will stop getting tackled and falling down inside the 5. Best way to earn $25,000 in bankroll money without getting a real job. Selling plasma. Sell your blood plasma. Murray or Gio in DK Cash? Right now, I prefer Gio because of his prolific use in the Bengals pass game. So, easier chance for Gio to have 6 catches and a touchdown, where Murray is also likely to score a touchdown, but highly unlikely to catch 6 balls. You know? Deposit $25K. Personal trainer to the DFS stars. There you go. Can the 49ers keep up with the Chiefs offense? I personally don't think that they can, but the Chiefs defense could be the cure to all that ails you. Jimmy Garoppolo has been very, very good, but has really struggled when it comes to finishing off drives, right? At the end of last year, they were not stalling and punting. They were stalling and kicking field goals. They did put up 30 points this last week in week 2 against the Lions, who I also don't think are a very good defense at all. So to me, it just comes down to, can they score enough? Because I think Kansas City's going to score a ton. Can they score enough to make it worthwhile? Like, if you ran this game 1,000 times, how many times do you think San Francisco scores over 28 points? And how many times do you think Kansas City scores over 35 points? And I think that Kansas City scores over 35 way more than San Francisco scores over 28. Mahomes, Tyreek, Kelsey, Watkins for all the money this week. Well, that's what won all the money last week. I don't think it's likely that that happens again. I think that it's very possible that a Mahomes stack or double stack could win all the money again, but a triple stack seems somewhat unlikely. Mahomes' hunt for all the KC TDs would be interesting. Caught a pass last week for a touchdown. Fuller okay in DK Cash. He's awkwardly priced for DK Cash for me. I think he's a great tournament play, and I think he's kind of a fringy cash play. Where, like, if he's the last man in, if I filled out my lineup and I have 5,900, I think he's the best 5,900 option. If he's the last guy, kind of like an NBA lineup where I'm like, okay, these are the guys, the values I have to have. These are the 2 studs I have to have. And then who else can I fit? And I got this guy, They're positive point per dollar guys. And then, well, my last guy is in this range. I have 5,900. Okay, Will Fuller. I don't mind him that much if that's your build. But, like, he's not a guy where I'm going to say, okay, who do I have to have this week in cash? Well, I got to have Clement. I got to have Will Fuller. No, he's not on that list for me. If I played Fuller in cash, he'd probably blow his hammy again. Well, that's sad. Carolina Bengals hidden stack. The hidden stack for Carolina is always going to be Cam Newton and CMC. Because nobody thinks to stack a quarterback and a running back. Same with Alex Smith and Chris Thompson. Nobody thinks to do that. It's the Spanish Inquisition of GPP plays. Nobody ever expects it. You're playing all the dudes this week. You know what? That's usually the right way to go, and it's a good way to end it, right? So when you have the value and you can just play all the dudes, play the best players, get them into your lineups, guys. That's the best advice that I can give you. Thank you very much for watching. If you're still watching this video, you're amazing. I appreciate the support. Thank you for hanging out and making it to the end of the video. Got a subscribe button right there if you haven't already. Got another video for you to watch right here. And I'll be back on Sunday morning with the Anti-Tinkercast. Bye, guys.